It was a cold morning in Maplewood, a quiet little town where time seemed to move slower than anywhere else. The mail truck rattled down Oak Lane, its tired engine humming softly as Tom Bradley, the town's old mailman, prepared for another long day of deliveries. He had been doing this for nearly 30 years, long enough that he could recognize every barking dog, every waving hand, and even the smell of Mrs. Kelly's morning pies from 2 blocks away. But there was one stop that had become his favorite, the old white house at the end of Willow Street, the one with the peeling blue fence and the small sign that read, "Beware of dog. His name is Max." Tom chuckled every time he saw it because Max wasn't the kind of dog anyone needed to beware of. He was a golden retriever with soft eyes, and every morning, rain or shine, Max would sit at the gate, waiting for Tom's truck. The moment he saw it coming, he'd wag his tail, run in circles, and bark like he was welcoming an old friend. Tom always had a small biscuit tucked in his pocket for Max. "Morning, soldier," he'd say, as he handed it through the gate. Max would gently take it, then sit proudly like a good boy, waiting for the next part of their daily ritual. That ritual was simple. Tom would hand him a letter, and Max would trot up to the porch, drop it neatly in front of the door, then bark once. After that, he'd return to the gate, tail wagging, as if waiting for a medal. The truth was, Max didn't really deliver the mail for anyone. The old lady who owned the house, Mrs. Clara Benson, had passed away almost a year ago. The house stood empty now, its garden slowly dying, windows collecting dust, but Max never left. Neighbors had offered to take him in, and even the animal rescue team tried once, but Max refused to go. He would escape every time, finding his way back to that white house at the end of Willow Street. And so, the townsfolk learned to let him be a loyal guardian of memories. For Tom, Max had become more than just another dog on his route. There was something sacred about his loyalty. So, even though the house no longer received any real mail, Tom started writing letters himself. Every week, he'd sit at his kitchen table, pour a cup of coffee, and write, "Dear Max, today was a good day. I met a little girl who reminded me of your owner. She smiled the same way Clara used to. I think she would have liked you too." He'd sign it, "Your friend, Tom." Then, the next morning, he'd seal the letter in an envelope addressed to Max Benson, Willow Street. It was silly, he knew, but each time he handed the letter to Max, the golden retriever would proudly take it and trot up to the porch, as if the house still had a heartbeat. Weeks passed, then months. Seasons changed. The maple trees turned from green to gold, then bare, and Tom grew slower, his steps heavier, but Max never missed a morning. Then, one day, Tom noticed something unusual. There was another envelope on the porch, this one not from him. It was old, its paper yellowed and corners curled. The handwriting was shaky, but still legible, "To my dearest Max." Tom's heart skipped. He picked it up carefully and read, "If you're reading this, it means I'm no longer there with you, my sweet boy. Thank you for every day you sat by me, for every walk, every lick, and every time you reminded me I wasn't alone. You were my family. I hope someone kind will take care of you, but if not, I know you'll find your way. Love always, Clara." Tom's eyes blurred. He knelt beside Max, who sat there quietly, his golden fur glowing in the morning sun. "You knew she'd come back in some way, didn't you, buddy?" Max wagged his tail gently, as if to say, "I never stopped waiting." That evening, Tom didn't go home right away. He sat on the porch beside Max, the two of them watching the sunset turn the sky into a watercolor of gold and pink. Tom whispered, "You keep delivering hope, huh?" And Max rested his head on Tom's knee, a soft sigh leaving his chest, the kind only dogs make when they know they're exactly where they belong. The next morning, Tom woke up earlier than usual. The sun hadn't yet risen, and a soft fog blanketed Maplewood. The memory of Clara's letter lingered in his mind like a melody that refused to fade. He poured himself a cup of coffee, sat at the small wooden table in his kitchen, and stared at the empty page of his notepad. For 30 years, Tom had been the one delivering messages, letters of love, loss, joy, and news from faraway places. But for the first time, he realized how little he had written for himself. He looked out the window at the quiet street. "Maybe it's time," he murmured, "to write something that matters." So, that morning, instead of his usual mail route, he drove straight to the White House on Willow Street. As always, Max was waiting, tail wagging, tongue out, eyes sparkling like he'd been expecting him all along. "Morning, soldier," Tom said softly, handing him a biscuit. "We've got work to do today." He knelt beside Max, brushing his fur gently. "I found something yesterday. Your owner, she loved you more than anything, buddy, and I think she wanted someone to keep writing to you." He opened his old leather mailbag and pulled out a fresh letter. "Dear Max," he read aloud. "It's funny, isn't it? A mailman writing letters to a dog. But you've taught me something about loyalty and love that I never learned from people. Maybe that's what Clara saw in you too. I don't know what the future holds, but I promise you won't wait alone anymore." He sealed the letter, placed it in the mailbox of the empty house, and smiled. There, another delivery. Over the next few weeks, this became a new ritual. Tom started writing letters, not just to Max, but about Max, stories of kindness, loss, and the strange ways love continues even after goodbye. Sometimes, he'd read them aloud to Max under the willow tree. Other times, he'd leave them inside the mailbox, imagining Clara reading them somewhere beyond the clouds. Word spread around town. The locals, touched by Tom's devotion, began leaving little notes of their own. Dear Max, you remind us to stay loyal. From Max, Maplewood's bravest heart, you make our mornings brighter. The mailbox soon overflowed with love letters addressed to Max Benson. The post office even had to create a small file labeled Mail for Max Willow Street. But one rainy afternoon changed everything. Tom was driving back after his route when he noticed Max wasn't waiting at the gate. His heart sank. He parked the truck and ran to the porch, calling out, "Max, buddy." No response, only the soft patter of rain. He found muddy paw prints leading toward the woods behind the house. Without hesitation, he followed them. The path was slippery, branches scratching at his sleeves, the sound of rain muffling everything but his pounding heart. Then, in the distance, he heard a faint whine. Tom pushed through the brush and found Max trapped in a shallow ditch, one paw bleeding slightly from a scrape. The old retriever was shivering, his golden fur soaked. "Oh, buddy," Tom whispered, his voice breaking. He knelt down and wrapped his arms around Max. "You scared me half to death." He carried the heavy dog back to his truck, wrapping him in his postal jacket to keep him warm. The vet said it was nothing serious, just exhaustion and a minor cut. But the incident shook Tom deeply. That night, he sat beside Max at the vet's shelter. "You know," he said quietly, "you've been waiting for someone all this time. Maybe, you've been waiting for me too." Max looked up at him with those deep, soulful eyes, and in that moment, Tom realized something. He hadn't just been writing letters to keep Max company. Max had been healing him. A few days later, Tom made a decision. He filled out the adoption papers and officially became Max's owner. When he opened the gate to the Willow Street house again, Max hesitated for a moment, as if asking, "Are we really leaving?" Tom smiled. "It's time for a new chapter, buddy. Let's go home." As they drove away, the town watched from porches and windows, cheering quietly for the loyal retriever who had finally found another person to wait for. Weeks later, the mailbox on Willow Street stood empty, but not forgotten. Tom returned one last time, leaving a single envelope on the porch. "Dear Clara, I wanted to thank you for trusting me with your best friend. Max is with me now, and he's doing just fine. You were right, he delivers hope, even without a mailbag. With gratitude, Tom Bradley." As he walked back to the truck, Max barked once, loud and clear, the kind of bark that echoed through the quiet neighborhood like a final salute. And though the house remained empty, it felt full again, filled with memories, love, and the spirit of a dog who refused to stop delivering happiness. Seasons changed in Maplewood like pages turning in a quiet book. Autumn leaves became snowflakes, and the white house on Willow Street, once lonely and silent, now echoed with laughter again. Tom and Max had settled into a new life that neither expected, two old souls who had found comfort in each other's company. Every morning, Max would trot beside Tom's mail truck, wearing a little blue postal cap that Clara had left behind. The neighbors adored them, the loyal dog who once waited alone, and the mailman who refused to let him wait anymore. Children waved when they passed. Shopkeepers would call out, "Morning, Officer Max," and Tom would grin and reply, "He's the real boss around here." But behind that lightheartedness, Tom could feel time quietly catching up. Max's walks were getting shorter. His once bouncy steps had turned slower, heavier. Some mornings, he'd struggled to climb into the truck. Tom refused to admit it though. He'd just smile and say, "Guess we're both getting older, huh, buddy?" One particularly cold winter afternoon, Tom stopped by the post office before heading home. A young boy ran up to him, holding a small envelope. "Mr. Tom, I wrote something for Max." Tom smiled and took it. "Thank you, kiddo. He'll love it." The boy grinned. "It's a thank you card for bringing my grandma her letters every week. She says Max is her favorite delivery boy." That night, Tom read the note aloud to Max, who lay curled up on the rug by the fire. "Dear Max, thank you for making everyone happy. My grandma says angels sometimes have fur. Maybe you're one of them." Tom's voice broke. "You hear that, soldier? You've been promoted." Max wagged his tail faintly, resting his chin on Tom's boot. The following morning, the world outside was blanketed in white. Snowflakes danced gently against the window, and the fireplace crackled softly. Tom made 2 cups of coffee out of habit, one for himself and one for Clara's old mug that he kept in memory of her. He looked down at Max. The old retriever was lying peacefully, his breathing soft and shallow. Tom knelt beside him and whispered, "Hey buddy, you ready for our route?" No movement, just stillness. Tom's hand trembled as he touched the dog's head, feeling the cold creeping into his fingers. Max, but deep down, he knew. The letter carrier who had spent his life delivering messages suddenly had none left to send. Tears blurred his vision as he lifted Max gently, wrapping him in his postal jacket, the same one that had once kept the dog warm that rainy night. He drove silently to Willow Street, where the story had begun. There, under the old willow tree, Tom dug a small grave beside the porch and buried Max with his blue cap and favorite biscuit. The snow fell quietly, like confetti for a departing hero. He placed one final letter in the mailbox, written not for Clara this time, but for Max. Dear Max, you've delivered more than letters. You've delivered joy, hope, and love to this entire town and to me. I used to think my job was about bringing people their mail. You showed me it was about connection. I'll miss our walks, our talks, and your company. But I know, wherever you are now, you've already found Clara, and maybe you both, waiting for me to join the route again someday. Until then, rest easy, my friend. You've made your last delivery. Tom. He slid the letter into the slot, raised the flag, and stood there for a long moment as the wind whispered through the trees. From that day on, Tom never returned to Willow Street to deliver letters. But once a month, he'd drive past it and leave a single white rose by the mailbox. The townspeople began to follow his lead. Before long, the fence around the old house was covered in flowers, ribbons, and notes addressed to Max, the dog who delivered love. Years later, when Tom passed away peacefully in his sleep, the town held a small ceremony at the post office in his honor. They placed his mailbag beside a bronze statue of Max that now stood proudly in front of the Willow Street home. At the base of the statue was a small plaque that read, "He waited for love, and love found him." On the day of the unveiling, as the crowd fell silent, a little girl whispered to her mother, "Mom, do you think Max knows?" Her mother smiled softly, wiping a tear. "Oh, sweetheart, I think he's delivering the news himself." As the sun dipped low behind the hills, the statue of Max glowed in the golden light, his tail forever lifted, his eyes fixed on the horizon, waiting for his next delivery.